The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be here with you on this Wednesday morning. You know I love Wednesdays because we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh with us, and then we will have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy a little bit later on with a very special guest, a singer, Sophie Rose, is with us in the second hour today. But we like to start every show by reminding you that this entire program is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want you to participate with us. We want to hear your questions, your thoughts, your concerns, and especially on Wednesday mornings when we have Dr. Granpeesheh here with us to answer some of the concerns that you have. So Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us. And while she's doing that, I want to remind you that you can be watching the show on our home site, which is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a lot to do. We want you to sign up for the free newsletter as soon as possible and tell other people about it. But you can also be watching the live show. You can watch the most recently recorded live show, and you can participate on the live feature. You see those two white boxes that are to the side of the computer screen? Put your cursor in the one that says your question, start typing and hit enter. That's all you have to do. You don't have to log in. There is no cost. There is no credit card information, no personal information taken. You don't have to fill out any lengthy forms, tell us who you are. In fact, you're completely anonymous to us. Isn't that a lovely thing? As I said, it's totally free. Now, here's the rub about being anonymous. If you want us to get back to you with some information, you need us to email you something, we will need to know who you are and how to get a hold of you. It also helps when you're writing your question if you tell us where in the world you are, because unfortunately all services are not available in all places, and it helps us to hone in on what might be available to you and what direction to go down if we know where in the world you are. That's a very helpful thing to do. But you don't have to tell us your name. You can stay completely anonymous. I love that because sometimes we feel self-conscious when we're asking a question, and you don't need to feel that. But by the way, there is no wrong question. You know what they always used to say, there's no stupid question. There is no stupid question. Ask whatever you want, and we're happy to try to connect you with some resources, and there is no better time to do that on Wednesday morning. So having said that, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh here with us. Good morning. So good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
This is an hour in which Dr. Granpeesheh will answer your questions, and in almost live time. It sometimes takes a minute or so for your question to come through, so make sure you ask your questions early. And Dr. Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism, and as I always like to remind all of us her, she's a visionary in this field.
Thank you very much.
An amazing, amazing resource.
We look forward to answering some questions and helping today.
Yes, but we always like to remind people at the start of the show that no expert in the field of autism can give child-specific or individual-specific advice in this format. It just doesn't lend itself to that. It would be a disservice for the individual to think that we could. I mean, you are so great at gleaning information from what people write in, but even having said that, you can't give child-specific advice.
And I will always say that when I respond to the questions. Oftentimes I can just give you some general guidelines, and it's, we want to be very cautious. I don't know enough about the children or the individuals that we're commenting on.
But it's so helpful. I mean, I just keep being reminded of this in the last couple of weeks, that sometimes you need to ask a series of questions to even know what question to ask.
Sure.
And I think that this format is so helpful. We get to pick your brain, and that is so valuable.
And I think what I like about it for families, and we get so many questions, and I hope we can answer as many as possible each time, but I think it's nice for families because it is anonymous, and you can just put in your information. You don't need to put in anything. You just put in your question, and you can, because it's live, you can keep following up. Sometimes we're in the middle of answering a question, and parents will give us more information while we're answering the question, so that's really helpful.
Yeah, it's so helpful. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I'm going to jump right in and ask some questions today. So the first one, hi, Dr. Doreen and Shannon. First off, congrats to the bride.
Oh,
for those
thank
of you
you
who are just joining us, Dr. Grandpichet got married. You're like 15 days a bride now.
Is it 50? Yeah,
it's
that's
15
right.
days.
July 4th.
Yes, we all
Thank
offer our
you.
congratulations. They go on to say, I have been hearing a lot about ATEC scores. My son is 3 and 8 months and has been with CARD for 9 months, 40 hours. My 2-year-old is going to start with CARD within the next couple of weeks. So I did the ATEC, and the 3-year-old scored 90 and the 2-year-old scored 57. What the heck do these numbers mean, and what is ATEC? Also, I write to you guys practically every week. Love you guys. You've taught me so much, by the way. You mentioned one time to give you my son's info so you can oversee his progress and if he's going in the right direction. So they have given their name.
Oh, good.
And which office that they're in, which I'm going to
good.
give off the air, so
Good.
we're not sharing that. And thank you all you do for all of us desperate moms, and God bless you both, and God bless to you as well. So,
Thank you very much, first of all, for those kind words, and I will take a look at your kids, both of their files. So the ATEC is the Autism Treatment Evaluation Checklist. It was made by our dear friend Steve Edelson, who was on the show.
oh, how wonderful, from ARI.
ARI, that's right. And the ATEC is an evaluation checklist. So the score indicates severity in different areas that have to do with autism. I don't know why you are completing the ATEC. I think the only insurance or funding agency that I know of that was requiring it was Magellan, and I don't think they are anymore. I might be wrong. It's not a standard test. It's an evaluation checklist. So it kind of just gives you, this is why Steve made it. Let me just say, the reason that he made it wasn't for the purposes of screening or diagnosis or anything. It was basically for the purposes of the family or the physicians or whoever to look and see if there's been actual progress with an intervention. So the concept with the ATEC was that it's a checklist. So you as a parent are filling out what you think, and then a year later you fill it out again, and it's sort of an objective measure of whether you see improvement and whether a treatment was effective. So don't worry. I wouldn't worry too much about the scores on it at any point, because it's not normed based on age, and so it doesn't mean like 90 is better or 20 is worse or whatever. That's not how it does count up the severity level, but then the real reason for the ATEC is just a pre-post comparison to see if your child has improved from where they were.
Okay.
What we helped Steve with this test years ago. We administered it to, gosh, I can't remember how many kids, because he was trying to do some reliability data. I am not sure if he's gotten the ATEC validated right now. I don't know yet. I know he was in the process of trying to validate it. I don't know if it happened. We don't use it unless a funding agency asks us to. It's on our website though, actually, because we consider it a good tool for parents. We use standardized measures, and standardized measures, of course, require a lot more time and work and so on. But it is it's a broader view, and it's helpful for parents because it kind of just gives, how's your child in certain areas, and it asks you specific questions about what you think has improved or not. not.
So would it
So
be...
that's really the only reason the ATIC is there.
Would it be overstating that then to say that when this is really going to be useful to her is if she does it again in a year?
Yeah, or in 6 months or whatever it is. And what I would suggest you do if you're a card client is you can pretty much see the same things as the ATAC on skills, but much more detailed. So you have a skills account. One of the things that parents don't realize is when you're at card, you have a skills account, and skills gives you daily and weekly and monthly progress. So you don't need to wait a year to look at your progress. You're seeing it every single day. I think I need to, we need to provide much more training and orientation, I guess, to our families so that they actually do start using skills. Very few of the families review their skills accounts.
Yeah, and I can imagine that a lot of people would want to. So
it's awesome. Yeah, it's one of the benefits.
We should really think about that, about what we can do to help support families to know how and when to use that.
Right.
So thank you so much, and we appreciate when you write it in. This is the fact that you're using this hour to get more information and to be able to have a conversation with Dr. Granpeesheh is exactly what we want you to do. So kudos to you for using it well. We got another question who says, my son has just been diagnosed at 2. My son has been diagnosed at age 2. Now he is 18. Social Security denied him and said he is not disabled. What can I do? Okay, so he's been diagnosed since 2.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I don't know what the basis of the denial is. I would assume that you will need to go see a professional and get an updated diagnosis. Clearly, if it's 16 years old, you're going to need an updated diagnosis, and it might be a completely different diagnosis. I mean, when 16 years ago,
18. He's 18. I'm sorry.
He's 18, and he was diagnosed at 2.
At 2, that's what it is.
Right. So 16 years ago, that would have been. You would have been on the DSM-4, I think. Yeah. You would have been on the DSM-4, and that just changed to the DSM-5, so his diagnostic criteria would have changed. He might have even been on the DSM-3. I'm not sure at this point, 16 years. But you should definitely go see a professional and get a new diagnostic done, and then submit that for Social Security. Or I think sometimes I fill out paperwork on kids that I've already seen, so if he has a current provider who's licensed, then they might be able to fill that paperwork out for you.
And my understanding with Social Security is that it is very natural to be denied in the first round, no matter what the disability is.
I don't know, yeah.
And, I hear that from people all the time, that it's just sort of, that happens frequently, that it's often through the appeal process that people get a yes.
I see.
But you may want to seek professional, as you said, somebody that has expertise in this field, but you may want to seek a lawyer to help.
Yeah, or I think going back to the organization 211, I think they also assist with things like filling out Social Security benefit paperwork.
And you and I had a conversation about 211 the other day, a really amazing organization that helps connect people
to resources.
Absolutely, and especially if your child is under the age of 5, can sometimes help you with funding. A really amazing organization.
Yes.
So reach out to them and see, and then let us know what you find out so that we can better help people when they have that question again. All right, we're going to take a short break and be back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Hello there, fellow activist. You're an activist because you're making the world a better place for someone living with autism. Now on Autism Live, you learn all about your children. You learn about their bodies and their brains. But this empowerment moment is all about you. It's about your heart and your soul. Now don't worry, I'm not going to have you start singing Kumbaya or doing chanting. Let's talk about blessings. One of the blessings of living with a child with autism is learning to love them unconditionally. Learning to love them despite all the ups and downs, all the sacrifices. In fact, you learn to love them more so because of them. I call this my empowerment prayer. God grant me the wisdom to see my disability as an opportunity, the courage to love my child unconditionally, and the faith to live a life of purpose. So going from the sublime to the ridiculous, I have a little song for you today. It's a rap song, so I know that an old or, middle-aged white woman rapping just doesn't seem right, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. My style is a little like Nicki Minaj meets Dr. Seuss. Nancy's autism rap. It's just a diagnosis, your life's not over. Don't lay there like a dog, get up, Rover. You say your head is spinning with GF, CF, ABA, IEPs, and neurofeedback? Autism tough, that much is true, but you'll survive because you're you. Your life's not over, it's just begun, so walk out that door and go be someone. More Dr. Seuss than Nicki Minaj. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us in the studio right now live Dr. Doreen Granpeche. She is a true expert in the field of autism and a visionary. She's answering your questions right now on the live feature. So feel free to write those in right now on our homepage, autism-live.com. Okay, from time to time, everybody loves to ask you this question, and I kind of feel like I know what you're going to say, but we've got some advice on sleep issues that they want. Already tried melatonin, clonidine, schedule, sleep study, and many others. My son is 13, has had sleep issues since 3.5, been really bad over the last 2 years, and they said hormones with 2 question marks.
Oh gosh, well, hormones definitely don't make it better. So yeah, that could be part of the issue. But sleep, first thing is that myself, and I can't, endorse anything, but myself, I and my family and many friends take this form of melatonin called Tranquil Sleep, which is a chewable medication. It's a chewable tablet, and it has melatonin and 5-HTP tryptophan and theanine. And I would say the melatonin on its own does absolutely nothing for me or my kids or a lot of people I know, and even if it does, it wakes you up in 4 hours. And this thing is great. So the combination, that's one thing that I've heard a lot of people say is fabulous for them. The combination of Benadryl and melatonin seems to be very effective for a lot of families. I'm not advising you on this, but I'm just telling you something that is effective for other people who have very difficult time with their children. Is just 25 milligrams, or depending on the size of the child, is 1 Benadryl, which is 25 milligrams diphenhydramine, as well as like 3 milligrams or 6 milligrams of melatonin, or this Tranquil Sleep. That combination seems to be very effective. Having said that, sleep also does have some aspects of behavioral learning in it, and a lot of times it's what happens, a lot of times the antecedent to waking up is some very, very tiny sound or change in the environment, and we don't realize it because we're not as sensitive as our kids are. And so it would be very important to kind of sweep through the room and the environment, that area of the house, and make sure that there's not little things like maybe sprinklers are turning on in the neighbor's house at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. These are things that parents have taught me over the years, that there's some very, very subtle change in the environment and the individual wakes up. Make sure that the room is as dark as possible. The presence of light during the night prevents us from producing the melatonin we need to produce. So we really need to have darkness. It really does help. What I found is very, very helpful is one of those air purifier things. Mine is on turbo all the time, and it makes a sound. So it's a it's white noise in the background, and it's really effective, strangely. Like, you might initially think, wow, this is kind of disturbing because it's loud, but it is amazing because it really blocks out all the other sudden sounds of the night. It really does block out other sounds. In fact, if I have that on, I have a hard time hearing the TV, even if it's on, because it just the white noise blocks things out, and it's pretty effective. So, just making the environment as calm and serene as possible, making sure that you spend the night yourself in that room and figure out what's going on. That's the antecedent control side of it. And the consequence control is when the individual wakes up, when the child wakes up, make sure that they don't eat. That's one very important thing, because when you eat when you wake up, it becomes a very, very quick conditioning. And now your stomach's going to actually wake you up on schedule because that's the time to eat. So try to actually not do anything and keep the individual in the room even if they're awake. Because if the child learns that they can wake up and come to your bed, if they can wake up and go eat something, these things are basically rewarding the waking up process. And then, if it's something like having to go to the bathroom that wakes the individual up, then make sure they're reducing their drinking after 6 p.m. so that they have more ability to sleep through.
Okay, really good advice.
And then, of course, all behaviorists should be able to assist you with sleep problems. Like ABA, we actually have sleep programs that we can do overnight. So our staff can help with that. And I don't know where you are, but a BCBA can help you with sleep.
Okay, wonderful. Want to move on to another question. My son has a fine tremor when attempting fine motor skills. I think he would benefit greatly from occupational therapy. Have you seen this in other children with autism? I have mentioned it to his pediatrician and neurologist, and I have not been satisfied with their answers. Please advise.
I have seen it, and I've seen it more than just in individuals with autism. And I've seen it with kids with ADHD. I've seen it in individuals with high levels of anxiety. I've actually even seen it with allergies. So I'm not too concerned about a high tremor because it's a mild tremor, but it's continual. But as long as you've been through a neurologist, I would say, that's where I would go, because the only reason you'd be concerned is if this is developing into some neurological, or is a symptom of some severe neurological disorder like Parkinson's or, any other kind of neurological issue. Outside of that, I've found kids who are begin to take ADHD medication, this stops. And anxiety medication tends to improve it with some individuals as well.
Okay.
Other than that, really, when it comes to something like tremors, you need to gain the expertise of a neurologist. And I'm sorry, if you haven't found the right answers, you should probably see another neurologist.
Yeah, I think anytime and it happens so often, all doctors aren't going to click with all people, but anytime we don't feel like we got enough of an answer, anytime, whether it's a child with autism or it's a tremor or anything that's going on with your health care, we have to listen to that inner self. I think it's one of the hardest things about autism, Dr. Crampochet, that for so long, we thought something was going on and somebody poo-pooed it, and it becomes hard after that to listen to our gut, but we need to get back to that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We question ourselves a lot. And then on the other hand, we also need to be aware and open to what professionals are telling us, because sometimes I find that we're in denial.
Yes.
And it's really, being in denial is more about our own egos than it is about our child's symptoms. And I have parents that I meet where all they really want to be able to tell me at intake is how intelligent the child is, and I'm very aware of that. I am aware that children with autism are very intelligent, and so it's more, if you get stuck on something like that, you have to be aware of what people tell you as professionals, and then you have to have the self-confidence, I suppose, to kind of see what feels right to you.
Okay.
The tremor issue, the last point I want to make on that is, pay attention to whether it increases during high stress, high anxiety situations. If that's the case, then you know for sure this is an anxiety-related symptom.
Okay, great advice. We're going to take another break and be back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Hi, this is Lisa Ackerman, back again, TACA Facts. Wanted to share with one of the most popular questions that we get, and that is, do children with autism recover? I don't know how to say it loud enough. Yes! Scream it from the mountaintops. We've seen it and witnessed it for over a decade at TACA. Thousands of children that lose their diagnosis. They become indistinguishable from their peers following therapeutics and medical intervention. And in 2013, the NIH, the National Institute of Health, agreed They studied children that had an autism diagnosis and did an in-depth analysis, and yes, so showed that children with autism actually can recover. And what I'm so excited about is the odds are in your favor. The study concluded that 10 to 20% of children with autism will recover after intensive early intervention and therapeutics and medical intervention. You may be thinking, wait, 10, 20%? That doesn't seem like a big number. Let me tell you why it is. For decades, we've been told autism is a no hope, nothing you can do. And what we know today is, yes, there is hope. So now that people know that recovery is possible, it's actually an option that can happen for families that, put what they can into the journey and, God willing, get their kid through the other side so they can live their lives in a beautiful way. I'm excited to share with you that recovery is possible. So now we can all shoot for that together.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampiche, and she's answering our questions, and we're learning so much. So I want to move on to the next one. My son has ASD and is currently enrolled in a private Jewish day school. The school is fairly accommodating to his special needs, but he struggles with social nuances of classroom interactivity, and he's struggling to make friends and get along. Are there any resources that can help us get an aide into his classroom to help facilitate appropriate behavior so he does not ostracize his classmates unintentionally with his eccentricities? And we don't have an age on this child, and we don't have a location.
That's okay. I feel like I get this situation.
All right.
I've had so many kids in this situation.
Okay.
So you need, I guess you need an advocate or an attorney as a resource first, because you do need to get an aide. There's two ways to get an aide. The first way to get an aide is to just go through the school system, and you go to an IEP and you'll request a one-to-one aide, and then the school will most likely say no, because it sounds like your child's pretty high functioning. So then the school will probably say no, and if they say no, then it takes you through the process of, trying to get an advocate, and then going to mediation possibly, and if that doesn't work, then going to due process, which I don't think it'll get that far, because if you're only asking for an aide, that's not a major thing, and you can just get that in the IEP and it will happen. But the problem is that the majority of the aides are not trained and they don't care. And I mean, I've been to schools where the aide is outside having a cigarette instead of watching the child and doing what they're supposed to do. So the other way to go about this is that you go to an agency first, so like a provider like CARD or any other ABA agency, and I don't know where you are, but in California this is very common, and in many other states. Some states are very strict about school process, but you should be able to manage this. Years ago it used to be much harder. So you get an agency, and then the agency does an evaluation and makes a recommendation that your child needs an aide. And so that's what I would do, for instance. And then I would say, but I wouldn't just give the child an aide. I never just give the child an aide, because I need a home program running concurrently, because what I teach in the home program, it's one thing to have an aide there who is going to assist the child and, interact and teach the child on the job sort of more appropriate skills, but at the same time I kind of need the work at home, the tutoring, where the child really starts to learn things like, oh, I'm being, arrogant, or I'm not reacting to other people's facial expressions, or I'm not really reading social cues appropriately. And that's where you work on those things at home, and then they're kind of mainstream or integrated into the school environment. So you could also start with an agency, and the agency will write you a letter of recommendation or a report based on evaluating your child, and then that is what you take to the school. And then the school, and when an agency is involved, I don't know about all other agencies. Some other agencies work together with the school. With us, we will want our aide, so it's not really a school district aide, it's one of our people, and then the school might fight that a little bit more, but then obviously once you get it, it's much higher quality.
Yeah.
These days, the schools don't fight it very much, because there's also insurance funding, so they know that they're not going to get stuck with the whole bill. In the old days, like maybe 10 or 20 years ago, they used to fight it pretty significantly because they were worried about opening the door. But I'll just tell you, as an organization, about I think, like right now for us in California alone, I would say it's probably about 70% of all of our kids are funded by insurance, and only about 30% of our not even, I would say maybe 10% of our overall funding is school districts, and the other 20% is probably regional centers. But so it's not a major thing. You should be able to get an aid funded by the school to accompany your child, and then they have to follow a series of steps and programs to help with all social areas. You sound like you're very involved, and you sound very eloquent, and that you know your child very well, and your child sounds high functioning. So I would really recommend for you to get into skills advanced cognition. This is the new subdivision of skills, which is really all about advanced stuff. And I think I'm not sure if it's public. I think it is public now.
I have not seen this, and
Yeah,
I want to go in right now and look at this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the breakout of the skills higher area curriculum.
Very cool.
And it is pretty cool in that it just focuses on these social areas.
Okay, sounds exciting to me too. And I love the idea of starting, you know, whenever you're in an argument, if it's just you standing and having an argument and they have a bunch of people on their side that are experts, you're really not going to be as effective as if you have experts on your side.
Oh, yes.
And so if you start with a provider that's, you know, is going to be able to give you a good quality aid, and they are on your side saying your child needs it, your fight is going to be that much easier.
Absolutely.
So I love this advice, because it's more efficient, and you'll actually get something that's worthwhile. I can't tell you how many parents I've heard that they fought to get the aid, and then what they got was something
really bad.
It wasn't what they were looking for. So I love this advice. It's much more effective. And then do us a favor and write back to us and let us know how you do with that.
And you know, I think the hardest part is getting the advocacy. We do know a few advocates and lawyers. And so if you need help finding someone, then write into us and tell us where you are.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, somebody wants to know, and now I've lost it, of course. Well, let's go to this one instead. Does Medicaid cover ABA in Louisiana? We contacted a place that says it does, but it will cost $10,000 outside of that. My son is severely autistic, 4 and nonverbal. We need ABA desperately to give him a voice and a chance. Please help us.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And we're in the process, I think, of getting approved. And when you receive Medicaid, I don't think there shouldn't be additional cost to you. So I'm not sure about all that, like why they're telling you that it'll cost you additionally. I would suggest that you contact, our contracts department here will help you. They know all the answers to all of these things. If you can either call our Louisiana office, which is Baton Rouge, and I think they might refer you back to contracts here centrally. And our contracts, I guess you call our main headquarters, which is, I don't know what the 800 number is, do you?
It's 800-345-CARD.
Oh, okay.
So I just recently figured out how easy that was.
That's awesome.
But I honestly think it might even be better. Just call that number, and they'll be able to put you through to
contracts.
Well, and they'll also be able to help figure out, because they'll help you to figure out what might be the best course. They're really good down there.
I know they are, but they're
helpful.
really busy. And here's the other. 211 Louisiana will also help you.
Absolutely.
One of the things 211 does is fill out your Medicaid paperwork. And I think that is an amazing benefit.
Really remarkable. Okay, I found the other question. Is sensory processing disorder considered autism?
Oh, wow. What a fantastic question.
Yes, I'm glad I found it.
So, no, it's not. To answer your question, no, it's not. But it's really more of a matter of just perspective, I think. A lot of the symptoms of sensory processing disorder are very similar to the symptoms of autism, or to, let's say, the causes of autism that persist. So let me just put it this way. Sensory processing problems, in my mind, tend to lead to the symptoms of autism. If you think about all the issues involved with sensory processing, and if that happens to you when you're very, very young as a developing brain, you are going to develop things like delayed speech and not knowing how to socialize and so on, because you are certain sensory stimuli are sort of entering or coming at you too strong, and you then tend to shut them off. And others are very difficult to decipher. I always refer to one of my recovered individuals who told me that the sound of language was background noise to him, and background noise and doors opening and so on were much, much louder. And so it was very difficult for him to be able to concentrate on language. And that's a complete sensory issue. And if you're not able to concentrate on a particular stimulus, you won't learn it as much as the things that are more prevalent in your system. Same thing with visual. I mean, I see some of my kids, I'm pretty sure they're aware of a lot of stuff. Like I can see them checking things, right? But they don't give eye contact. And if you're not really able to give eye contact to a human being, you're not going to learn facial expressions. You're not going to learn all the nuances and messages that go with eye contact. So, or even being able to focus. I'm pretty convinced there's a lot having to do with the visual aspect of things with our kids, because they're so unable to look at things the same way we do. They have a completely different visual integrative field. It's very different for our kids. And like, even when you get eye contact, a lot of the kids will look at you just like this.
Yeah.
You know, there's something very significant going on. So in my perspective, the sensory issues are actually what lead to those symptoms we call autism.
Okay. All right, really remarkable. We're going to take another break and be back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Hey guys, welcome back to Smarty. Today we're going to be making homemade glow-in-the-dark bouncy balls. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2 mixing bowls, something to stir with, measuring spoons, borax, cornstarch, water, glue, and glow paint and food coloring. So step 1, you're going to take one of your measuring bowls and you're going to measure out half a teaspoon of borax, 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 4 tablespoons of water. Then you're going to mix that all together. I'm going to set this aside. In another bowl, I'm going to mix my glue and my glow-in-the-dark paint and any food coloring I want to use to make it a special color. I have 2 separate bowls with the mixtures in them. Now I'm going to put them together, letting them sit for the next 15 seconds, and then I'll stir them together. It's important that you let them sit for a moment before stirring so they can do their magical thing. Now that the 15 seconds is over, I'm going to stir together the mixture, making sure to stir thoroughly until I can no longer do it anymore. You'll see what I mean in a second. Now that I can no longer stir it, I'm going to start rolling around in my hands to make a ball. And voila, very own homemade bouncy ball. Woo! Well, I hope you had fun with this activity today. Until next time, drop down, guys.
And you see me flying by your side.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampichet, and she's answering your questions on the live feature. So thrilled to have you here.
Thank
so I'm
you.
going to jump into another question. Why do children with ASD sometimes twist their hands and fingers into unusual poses?
I don't know. And I have seen that, but I don't know. I really can't explain it. I mean, perhaps they're tensing the muscles. I've seen kids also do this, you know, just sort of like squeeze their muscles. I don't know if that's the same kind of feeling. Could also just be a habit that they've developed. It could also be something that's responding to sort of something you do in moments of anxiety. I honestly don't know. I mean, I observe it's not common. But I have seen it, and I'm not sure. And also, it might have something to do with, you know, how a lot of children, what's more common is they'll just, for instance, look at something. The other day I had a little girl and she was looking at my nails or something, and then she did this little flipping on my nails, like flicking of her fingers, you know, so why do they do that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's related to the maybe not enough sensory input. I'm not sure.
You know, it was one of the things that I always wondered about when Jem did his STEM behaviors, and still he has some vocal things that he likes to do in his spare time. He can control it and choose when he does it, which is what was important to me. But I remember taking one day and just saying, I'm gonna do all the things that he does and just see what the deal is, because he was a hand flapper, that he would do this, and it was a day that I had a lot of anxiety, and I started doing this, and I went, you know, I feel better.
That's so interesting. That's funny.
I feel better. I don't know what it is about that that calmed me down.
Right.
And I thought, well, how interesting is that? And there were other things that I did that kind of woke me up. So,
well, I mean, there's this type of therapy in psychology, you know, tapping that involves that. And so that is also actually tapping key parts. I don't remember it. I got trained in it.
I
but
did too. There's a whole like
it starts here
and here. This
and
was
here, right.
Yes.
And you tap certain parts of your body, and it is like beyond belief effective for PTSD, for post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm not sure, you know, the science behind it. I mean, you are basically, I guess, accessing certain energy channels and so on. But the fact that it works is undisputed. It is the primary type of intervention for people who've been through severe trauma. So, you know, there's a lot we don't know.
There is a lot we don't know.
Absolutely.
Really remarkable. Okay, so we're going to continue on. A bunch of people wanting to know when you're going to come, where they are. Somebody wanted to know if you were coming to New York. Dearest Dr. Doreen, when will you be coming to New York? I hope to attend one of your seminars someday here. My 5-year-old son finally got coverage with you guys from his insurance, Fidelis Care, and I'm extremely thankful to Deidre King. Just saw her in the documentary Sounding the Alarm. Thank you card. Thank you, Dr. Doreen.
Oh, thank you. We were so happy when that insurance company finally put us in network, and we got so many families in New York that needed that coverage. So we're thankful, and also to be able to help you and work with your child. I don't have anything planned for New York, although I should, because we're just in the middle of opening a site in Manhattan. And so I should probably visit somewhere towards the end of this year, probably somewhere fall, or it won't be winter. Is kind of a crazy time for me, but maybe in the fall I'll be coming out. Next week I'm in Washington, D.C. For just a couple of days, and you know, and worst case scenario, what I tell everyone, God, I hope I can follow through on this. Next year is CARD's 25th anniversary, and I will be traveling and seeing as many of the offices as I can.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that.
Something to look forward to. Okay, and another person wants to know, hi, when will CARD be in Palm Beach County? I believe you are on the West Coast in Florida, but not in the East Coast where we live. We have CMS Medicaid.
Right. We're not in Florida yet. A lot of times people think that we are in Florida, and that's because there's another CARD there, Center for Autism and Related Disabilities.
Okay.
We've actually asked them numerous times, both personally and legally, to change their name because we own the name CARD, but they hide behind the University of Florida. They claim they're a part of the University of Florida, and the University of Florida has been there since 1800s, and so therefore private entities cannot file anything against universities. This is the same problem we have with CARD, which is associated with Johns Hopkins. If you're associated with a university, private entity can't do anything about you using the name, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're not in Florida. We are providing some services in the Fort Myers area, but not a lot yet. So I think we've started providing some services. We're in the process of looking at taking over an existing agency in Jacksonville. And if we take that agency over, obviously their entire thing would change to a CARD model. The only reason we would take them over is because they're already approved for Medicaid, and also they have BCBAs that we would retrain, and they have staff. So that would be very helpful to us. That's Jacksonville. I haven't looked at anything further south. I haven't looked at, I should look at Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach and so on, but I haven't. And it's time for us to do that. And, you know, when parents assist us is really what helps us move forward. As I said, I think we are we just got approved with Medicaid in Florida, or we're very close to getting approved, and if we take over this other agency, we'll have the approval anyway. So that would not be an issue. We would receive that funding and would be fine with that. But it's a matter of getting us started there. And the way we start is always when a few families get together and require services, then we'll send out staff just to start with one family or two families, and then as it grows, it gets to a point where it's feasible for us to actually open a site.
I always think back to, we did an interview with, I cannot remember which family it was in Boston that had been a part of when they were one of the first families that you serviced in Boston. And we were talking, and she said, you know, we always thought of it was like a field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. And she said, you know, we were determined that we were going to have card services, and it wasn't here, and we got together with some other families, and now there's 2 offices in Boston because that group of families built it, and card came. And that's very true. If you want card anywhere, whoever is listening, if you want card, get together some families and you know, have that infrastructure of families that want to come. You can start having those remote services, and card will come to where you are.
Absolutely. And I will say that aside from the first card and the second card, which was New York, all other cards, and we're up to about 30 now, all other centers were initiated by parents, like very clearly. And plus, we've closed down a few over the years, which were international, and turned them into franchises. Those were initiated by parent groups as well. It's always about what the parents put together. But if you are interested in having a card near you, just contact our expansion director, which is John Galley, and I've given his information out a few times. It's j.galley, G-A-L-L-E, at centerforautism.com, and he's right on that.
Okay, next question. Good morning. Attention from my husband is my son's most powerful reinforcer. We are working on decreasing his disruptive and property damage, which are negative attention seeking. Can we use him, Dad, as a reward, or should we schedule time with him during the day, like after day program every 30 minutes, he can spend a few minutes with his dad to help manage his aggressive outbursts? My son is 24 and understands everything that is said to him. He can be very verbal, but often chooses not to use his words. And they said thank you. I think it's a great question.
It's a great question. And you certainly should consider the attention from Dad as a reinforcer. Absolutely. But be very cautious. You don't want Dad, I think I read or I heard you're thinking about having Dad work on the aggression issues. I wouldn't do it that way. I would actually have, get a professional involved, because then the way that you do it is you basically, if there has been no aggression that period of time, let's say that day or that morning or that hour, then the child gets to spend some time with Dad. And the time spent with Dad is just fun.
Right.
Now, and it doesn't have to be like for every hour he spends an hour, not at all. It could be for every 3 hours or 4 hours or half day, and you gradually increase that the child is behaving well and doesn't have aggressive behavior. Then they spend 15 minutes with Dad or half an hour with Dad, whatever is effective. And that is important to do. But in terms of dealing with the aggression itself, it would be much more important that you do a whole functional assessment, figure out exactly when the aggression is happening, for what function, what reason, and then handle it appropriately.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful advice. We're going to take a short break and come back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to
be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
Abstract.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampiche. She's answering your questions on the live feature on autism-live.com. We've still got a couple of minutes, so you can be writing in your questions right now. And if we don't get to something, we keep them in the mix to answer them another week. So somebody wants to know, we've been talking a little bit about anxiety. Somebody wants to know, can you recommend some good social anxiety resources? My son has high-functioning autism and attends our local university. And she says, thank you.
Gosh, anxiety is such a big factor for our higher functioning individuals. I would, in terms of resources, and I hope it's there, I did a lot of research because I've given a few presentations on anxiety. And I would recommend that you go on the CARD website and look for my PowerPoint, my presentation. I think a lot of my talks are on the CARD website. I hope they are. If they're not, you can certainly email CARD, the general CARD email, and it will get to me saying, ask where are Dr. Grampiche's presentations.
And we did 2 shows with you on anxiety that featured that whole presentation. Exactly. And it's called Anxiety Show Part 1 and Anxiety Show Part 2.
And I really think you should take a look at that because there's a lot you can do for anxiety, from medication to just exercises, breathing exercises, things that you can do, like reducing fear activities, desensitization. And then there's worksheets, there's books out there, there's a lot of stuff you could do, and it is very, very important. I've tried to put in those presentations as much as I could think of in terms of like little things, like giving the individual some item that is associated with comfort. There's a billion things you can do. So start there. And then I think that's probably your best bet, because I don't know too many psychologists who deal with kids on our spectrum, and I know most behavior analysts don't believe too much in cognitive things like anxiety. I do. I think anxiety is probably the biggest role in everybody's lives. And so therefore I think you can start with the resource that I give on the PowerPoint, and there's a lot of little books and so on listed there too.
Absolutely. And I've shared before on the show that I had debilitating, there's the word I want, anxiety, and even I got to a panic disorder time. And I have shared before on the show that I did cognitive behavioral therapy to get better, and there was a workbook that they made me get that's called the Anxiety and Panic Disorder Workbook.
Great.
And you can get it at Barnes & Noble.
Great.
And it's just worksheets that you go through yourself. And then I had, somebody that I would talk through them with, but those worksheets were really honestly the thing that did the ticket for me.
That's awesome.
It just restructured how I thought about certain things and gave me, what it did is it gave me a replacement behavior that when the panic would come up, I had other things to do.
That's very good.
The worksheets gave those to me.
That's very good.
And I've recommended that to many people and said, get that workbook.
Wonderful. I should get that for someone I know as well who could really benefit from that. But the thing, and that's fabulous that they worked as a replacement. So you'd already gotten to the point where you would reach out to it when it was beginning to happen. For me, I guess. I think everything I've learned in psychology about anxiety helps me very significantly. If it's a very high anxiety-provoking situation, I immediately turn to all the things I know. And I've tried to do that for my kids. Because once you learn more about anxiety, it just doesn't make sense anymore. It's kind of like, oh, okay, this is just the perfectionist in me. Or, oh, okay, this is just that and that, so fear of failure or embarrassment, all these things. And then it becomes very clear to you how to deal with it. But if you're not able to recognize it, and it does go to the level of being panic disorder, it's really debilitating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Truly.
And just what you were saying reminded me, too, that Evelyn Gould, who we have on the show from time to time,
That's
who
right.
talks about acceptance commitment therapy, talks about the book called The Reality Slap, that is written by
That's right. That's a very good
by a
book, too.
parent
That's right.
of a child on the autism spectrum, which is just incidental to what the book is about, which I
Right.
love. That
Right.
It's incidental, but that you know that he understands what he's talking about.
It's a great book.
And
yeah.
talking about how when you're having those feelings, that looking at what your moral compass is and why this matters to you so much, which puts it in a context that
changes
you don't
your
have to panic. Yeah,
perspective. That's
exactly.
right. That's right.
So and that's the book called The Reality Slap.
Right.
It might be something good for you to read, and for a 23-year-old who's going to college, might be something that he could benefit from as well.
Absolutely. Or the worksheets that you just mentioned.
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So this is a question that I'm really interested in. Why does my child speak more after we spin him? And we saw this in our son when he was little too.
Really?
So what's the
interesting.
deal with that?
Let's see. From a physiological perspective, I suppose it is increasing neurotransmitters for sure, because you're producing sort of that adrenaline goes up, right, when you're spinning him, so then you're modifying neurotransmitters. So this would probably be someone whose neurotransmitters are off balance. Most of us are not really well balanced. Neurotransmitters have a very direct relationship to what we eat. So that would probably explain it. And of course, you know, the primary medication that works with a lot of children is the SSRIs, which are the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and serotonin is a neurotransmitter. A lot of our kids who are sort of don't show signs of empathy or so on, that would be dealing with their dopamine, but it's all neurotransmitters. So that would probably make sense why that happens. It has something to do with a rush, surge. You know, a lot of parents tell me that their kids speak a lot more, become much more awake and so on when they have a fever.
Yes.
And that might have something to do with it as well, because of obviously fevers are metabolic change. So, you know, we don't know enough about autism, but I'm pretty sure that it would have something to do with a surge of neurotransmitters.
We just looked at it as a gift when we discovered that. And how we discovered it, it was very popular 8-9 years ago for OTs to do something called astronaut training. And it's a very specific set of exercises that they'd put your kid basically on a turntable and turn them 10 times one way and then 10 times. Now, I got dizzy watching it.
Yes.
I wanted to just, you know, hurl watching it. And my son loved it. And he would come up off the thing and be talking in a sentence where he wasn't before. And it gave us all kinds of encouragement. Like, it wouldn't last.
Yes.
But it gave us encouragement that we knew the ability was there.
Absolutely.
And then to find other ways to bring it out that were more practical, because you can't take a turntable with you everywhere.
All the time.
Right?
That's really fascinating. A lot of kids, as you know, love roller coasters.
Yes.
Like, they do so well with roller coasters, and that is similar. It's the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Gosh, we should do some studies on this. It's so fascinating. Is it still that way with him?
You know, he doesn't spin anymore. And so we used to put him in the office chair and spin him.
Right.
And I don't know. I should try spinning him at home and see. But he would spin on his own accord, too. But he just doesn't do it anymore. And I'll tell you, one of the things that when we were in our first year at CARD, we talked about it with Sabrina, our case manager, and we were trying to decide whether to get the Disney season pass so that we could go on a regular basis. And she encouraged us, if we could afford it, to do that because it was his reward. And what we would find is that he would work really hard. We had Disney. He had Disney dollars, and when he got a certain number of Disney dollars as a reward, we would go to Disneyland for an afternoon, not a long time, and he would go on all the rides that would spin and do all that. And we would find we would get good behavior because he wanted it, and then he would speak better for maybe 2 days afterwards.
So that's the thing, and I think part of the reason that Disney and all these places become reinforcing is because of the way kids feel after these rides.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing that no one has done something with this, because it sounds so promising.
Yeah. Well, and as I said, for a long time, for like a year, the hot thing was for OTs to do that astronaut training. And I don't know if they still do it. I haven't heard much about it recently.
I haven't heard it at all.
Well, I'll hook you up with a resource to it, because it was fascinating. We built a little turntable at home for a while.
Awesome. That's
because the office chair got to be too small for it. They had to lay down on one side and then lay down on the other side, and you have to spin them one way and the other way, and then they have to sit sit-up, and then they have to put their head between their knees for one spinning. It was a whole series that we had to follow for our OT. But we would get some language out of it, and it gave us a lot of hope. I can't believe we're out of time. But I want to thank you for this time, always, and all the things that we learned, and I want to thank all of our viewers for what you write in. I learned so much from all of you. You know what I always say, we get through this together. We all learn from each other. So, si se puede, right? So we have you next week?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And we're going to take a break now. And
actually, I think isn't next week. Next week is when I'm in
Well, you were talking about being in Washington. That's why I didn't know if it was Wednesday.
Yeah. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
well,
unfortunately.
we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out and be back in touch with you guys. But we're going to take a break now and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders that follows a little boy, Jack Riley, after he was diagnosed at the age of 2, and as he starts his early intensive behavioral intervention. It's really fascinating, and we showcase one episode for an entire week and share information about it and talk about it. But you can watch the entire series at any point on its very own YouTube channel. And after that, we're going to be back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and our very special guest, singer Sophie Rose, is with us. So stick with us. Here is the A Word.
Jack Riley starts his day with Jessica and AB therapy at 8 a.m. Each session he has lasts around 2 hours, with a total amount of therapy of 40 hours per week. This includes occupational therapy, speech therapy, and ABA therapy.
What do you want to play with today?
Train.
That's what I thought.
Yay, there you go.
There's trains and tracks.
Nice.
So what's an average of programs you try to get done in a session with a kid?
I try to incorporate a lot of things as much as I can. Like, for instance, if he was playing with trains, I'd incorporate functional pretend play. So that's just basically teaching him how to play with the toy appropriately, the way it's supposed to be played, building a track and having him move, and using vocalizations. Choo-choo, let's go, all aboard, things like that.
Choo-choo. All right, say all aboard.
All aboard.
All right.
As he's so little, we're building a lot of language. It's language all the time. So we work on banding, so having him request for things for me. We can also work on tacting, which is having him label like the colors, the names of the trains.
That's the twist. It's
Thomas. Also, we can work on getting attention. I would withhold the preferred trains or tracks and have him tap my shoulder to get more pieces.
He wants to go.
Hi, what do you want?
Train.
You want trains. We can also work on compliance, like come here and give it to me. Wait. Come here. So there's a lot of things I can kind of incorporate, at the same time in one sitting. And as far as his behaviors, I haven't really seen anything. Hey, sit up! Well, just now. Yeah, with his visual stereotypy, his is just looking at things from a different angle or sideways or upside down. But he rarely engages in that except just now.
What?
Pickers.
Huh?
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm filming you.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Say hi, everybody.
Hi, bye.
Who is that?
Jack.
Jack? Jack who?
Jack Riley.
Where's your nose? Where's your ears? Where's your eyes? Where's your chin? Ooh.
Where's your teeth? Is that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your head? Where's your tummy? Okay, I'm gonna need you now. Give me clothes.
Jessica and Jack Riley are continuing to work on categories.
Give me vehicle. Oh, sorry. Thanks. Give me vehicle. Nice. What's a fire truck?
Fire truck.
What is that?
Vehicle.
It's a vehicle. Cool. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a dress?
Clothes.
Clothes. Nice. Here you go. Here's your sticker. Give me furniture. Nice job. What's a table?
Furniture.
Furniture. Perfect. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a jacket? What's a jacket? No, what's a jacket? No. Hey, hey. What's a jacket? No, what's a jacket? It's
It's taken.
What is it?
It's clothes.
It's clothes. So what's a jacket?
Clothes.
Clothes. Good job. Here, put Tigger on. Yeah, you're all done. You want your trains or bed?
Trains.
Okay, go play with your train.
Okay, see you later.
Good morning to Let's Talk. Talk. Hello. Repeat, rewind, delete. Good morning, and it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Allspaw-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm thrilled that you're here.
Thank you. I have allergies or a cold or something,
You're
and
like
it's kind of got
the
fuzzy
walking
brain.
wounded today.
Yes,
and
yes.
Yet she's here, and she's on it, and you look beautiful. You're
Well,
looking all
thank
tangerine
you.
and
Tangerine.
pretty. I had tangerine on at one point
that
this
would've
morning,
been fun.
and then I took it off.
We would look like orange popsicles.
Well, and I have, especially before I put on makeup, I have such horrible rosacea, so I put tangerine on and I just look like somebody dunked me in a popsicle vat. You know, it's just terrible. So it's not my color, but it's sure, you're working it, girl.
Well,
so.
thank you. Thank you.
Well, and you wanted to talk just for a second at the start of the show that last week there were a lot of stories in the news.
Yeah, I mean, my eyes are swollen from allergies today, but last week on Wednesday, I was so... I know you felt this way too.
Yeah, sometimes it just kicks your keister.
Sometimes, you know, if you are a empathetic person, which I think every autism parent is, some of these stories, and of course last week we had the story of the young boy in Anaheim, a Vietnamese family who, in order to control him and his aggressive, self-injurious behaviors, they kept him in a cage.
Yeah.
And that story is still ongoing. ACT Today is trying to reach out to help the child who is in the foster care system at this point. So more to come on that. But that one really kind of got everybody.
Yeah.
And then there was the young boy in Maryland, 5-year-old boy, who his grandparents were his guardian. We can only assume that the parents left him with the grandparents, and apparently just, you know, wonderful people who had taken such good care of this young boy. And he was known for eloping and wandering, and within 5 seconds he was out the door and drowned in a 5-foot pool of water. So after reading that story, I think we get to that point sometimes where we feel like, when will it end?
Yeah.
When will all of these tragic stories end about our children that obviously aren't getting the kinds of therapy and care and treatment they need? Yeah. And then I went to see my son in the Miracle Project production over at Cal State Northridge. Elaine Hall joining the Spectrum, and you and Jem and Jim came on Friday, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show and show a couple of pictures. We're going to have Elaine back on with some of the stars of the production, but it really restored my faith in just our autism community, that while, yes, there are tragedies, there are also miracles happening every day. And then I was reading Thomas Merton, who's the great monk and father of contemplative prayer, and there was a line about only in our devastation can we find, salvation, and that we can't be undone by the cruelty and horror in the world, that we have to keep pushing in the name of love. And it just, things changed after that for me.
And I love that you quote Thomas Merton. I love to quote Dory from Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. Kind of tells you a little bit about Nancy and I.
Keep going. 1 foot. Well, 99% of it is showing up, they say. I think that was Woody Allen.
Well,
so.
Not interested in quoting him.
Yeah.
But let's quote Dr. Seuss instead.
Yes.
In any case, we've got some stories that we want to cover, and we've got a lovely, lovely guest who's here with us today. All week long, we've been talking about making a difference, and we've got a young woman who's going to be sharing some of her talents and showing us how she's making a difference.
Yes, Sophie Rose, who is a phenomenally talented singer-songwriter who I've had the privilege of watching grow up. I first met Sophie, she must have been about 4 or 5.
Wow.
And it's amazing to see the young woman she's blossomed into and the work she's done for Act Today, and she is going to be honored this year on October 19th at our Denim and Diamonds for Autism fundraiser at the Four Seasons in Westlake Village. She's going to be getting the Golden Cowgirl Award, which is given to community activists, and she has written a song for Act Today that we're going to hear today.
Really
fun. Yeah.
Looking forward to that in our next segment, but we have a couple of news stories. One that hits a little bit close to home for you because you're a North Carolina girl.
Yes, well, I was born in North Carolina, raised mostly in Virginia, but a lot of my family is still there. In fact, we're going to a family reunion in August. 100 and some of us are showing up from the All-Spa family.
Those crazy All-Spas.
Those crazy All-Spas.
We'll be getting together. But yesterday was a big day in North Carolina for autism. They were calling it a showdown. The North Carolina families gathered on the steps of the Capitol for a big rally because they're fighting to get autism coverage once and for all on the books. It was a pretty impressive rally. The time is running short. We want to make sure that everybody knows that this really is important for everybody who lives in North Carolina. And honestly, it's important for all of us. If you think about that, each state, we've had our little battles and we've needed support along the way. So whether it's just think a good thought for those in North Carolina or make a phone call if you have family in North Carolina. If you are in North Carolina, make sure that you're advocating and letting your voice be heard. But yesterday they did
I have a sneeze coming.
Okay.
As I said, allergies, so bear with me.
Bless you. But they were on the steps of the Capitol yesterday fighting for this. The North Carolina House of Representatives twice since 2013 has passed legislation that would require state-regulated private health insurers to cover autism treatments such as ABA, as well as speech, occupational, and physical therapies. But there's a big contingent that continues to argue that ABA is experimental and should be provided in schools at taxpayer expense. In the House, Speaker Tom Tillis has championed the bill.
He has.
And we want to thank him for that.
Thank you, House Speaker Tom Tillis. Big shout out to you.
Yes. But it needs to be approved. So they were on the Capitol, and they were on the Capitol steps. Liz Feld from Autism Speaks was there as well. And she issued an open letter to Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina.
They have been lobbying against the bill, and they're the ones that are saying it's educational rather than medical.
And I think that is unconscionable because Blue Cross is covering it in other states.
Yes.
They are opening themselves up to a lawsuit. They need to be aware of that. I don't understand what grounds they're saying that it's experimental when there are hundreds of studies that show how effective autism is.
Yes, and Liz Field said it's not experimental, it's not theoretical. And we don't have to wonder if it's going to work. We do know.
We absolutely know. So we stand in solidarity with those of you in North Carolina, and we encourage everyone within the sounds of our voices to make sure that you let people in North Carolina know that that you stand with them as well. And if you have the ability to vote in North Carolina, make sure that you are telling your legislators where you stand on this issue. And then we can all collectively say, thank you, go home to Blue Cross Blue Shield for their opinions about it being experimental.
Right. That's right.
That's all. And then another story that, it saddens me. Sometimes our legislators, they think that they're doing something that's good, and sometimes they miss the mark. It's just a communication. But we want to report to you about a story that sheltered workshop eligibility may soon be limited. In the past, there has been the ability for individuals who have disabilities to be hired at a rate that is lower than
the minimum wage.
To work in facilities where they're doing things that are really repetitive and manual in nature, that they can, that sometimes when we have some people who are more profoundly affected, that's going to be the goal for them, is to be able to do those kinds of jobs.
My brother with Down syndrome, David, worked in a sheltered workshop, and that was a blessing for my parents.
Right.
I think he handled putting postage on envelopes, and it was a very meaningful thing for him. He was picked up every day by a bus. He was taken to that sheltered workshop, and he felt a sense of purpose in that. And it gave my parents relief from that period of 9 to 3 that they could have their own lives.
And one of the arguments here, one of the reasons why they can't afford to pay them more, is that they're going to have more people there supervising the individuals. And if we understand the purpose of the Wage Act and the reason why we have a minimum wage is so that you can support yourself. And I know that's a big joke to a lot of people, because the minimum wage you really can't support yourself on. But these are individuals who aren't, normally if you qualify for these programs, you're not going to live independently and live on this paycheck.
Right.
But this is an opportunity to have the self-esteem. In any case, what's happening is that earlier this month, actually last month, the U.S. Senate voted 95 to 3.
So a huge majority.
Huge majority to approve a sweeping jobs bill known as the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Now, I know that the intention of this
was good. They really intended to do a good thing.
Yeah, and so they're hoping to get employers to hire more individuals who have disabilities, and to get them a more livable wage. But in the course of doing this, what they're effectively doing is wiping out some of these eligible workshops that were legislated to be able to handle a different group of people. So we want to make everybody aware of the fact that this is in danger. It's another reason to talk to our legislators and say you need to understand the difference between these two things.
Well, they're saying that unless the bill would prohibit individuals with disabilities aged 24 and younger from working in jobs paying less than the federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour unless they first try vocational rehabilitation services, among other requirements. There will be exceptions for those already working for what's known as sub-minimum wages in cases where the individuals are deemed ineligible for vocational rehabilitation. I just wonder how they're going to encourage employers to hire some of these disabled individuals.
Well, and what's the criteria for actually looking at whether they, imagine your brother, would it have been stressful for him to have to try to go through a vocational rehabilitation where he was trying to be trained for a job that was something that could potentially be stressful to him?
Right.
I just wonder who we're leaving this decision with, somebody who gets it or somebody who doesn't.
Well, they're leaving it up to state vocational rehabilitation agencies to provide pre-employment transition services. So that will be interesting to see how that all pans out, and if in fact it does in the long run become beneficial.
We hope that they keep a close eye and make sure that it's actually benefiting people instead of closing them out of jobs that they could do. All right, so we have a wonderful guest, as we mentioned before. Sophie Rose is here with us. We're going to take a break.
Yeah, we're going to come back with Sophie Rose and find out how she is using her talents to help charitable causes like Act Today and children with autism. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Ryan with Autism Research Group. We study ways to improve the lives of kids with autism. One of those ways is teaching safety skills, such as what to do if they get lost. We hit the streets to find out if anybody knows the correct answer on how to teach a kid what to do if they get lost. You're teaching a child
what to do if they get lost.
Yeah, you're trying to make them independent so they have the skills.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, give them a compass. Code name's good idea. Centurion.
We always have this whistle.
Oh, I'd also tell the kid, don't get scared. It's You're gonna be all right, man. This is just the world. This is planet Earth. You're at home here. As long as you're on planet Earth, you're at home.
As long as you're on planet Earth, you're home. This guy's a genius. With that flawless logic, he just solved our homeless problem. And as for the unique sounding whistle, although very cool, it'll probably only work if you're in close proximity. And a compass.
I have her call me.
Yeah, she don't have a phone. Parents are like, you're too young, you don't need a phone.
Establish some sort of like meeting place.
What if they can't find a meeting place? Because sometimes the kids get nervous when they get lost.
Yeah.
So like a backup plan, plan B.
Yeah, I don't know. No, not really.
Let them go and find a new kid. Or
Yeah, I've got a different one. Yeah.
There's not much you can do.
There is stuff you can do.
Right?
That's right, there is stuff you can do. In 2012, myself, along with my colleagues, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox and Dr. Adele Nadowski, published a study in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis on teaching kids what to do when they get lost. The study demonstrated how 3 simple things, rules, role-playing, and praise, were effective in establishing these help-seeking behaviors. The benefit of this method is it doesn't require the child to have a cell phone or to have to locate a meeting place, which might be difficult if they're in a place like Disneyland. So once again, our method included rules, role-playing, and praise. Let's head back outside and learn about some of these rules.
They should yell out loud. Can't find my mom, help me.
Maybe yell out and scream for help.
All right, scream really loud.
Correct.
And if that doesn't work, then
I don't know.
well, they could seek help from someone.
Find an adult.
Yeah, go to a vendor, you know, and say I'm lost.
Find an adult, like a police officer or a fireman or an employee in the store, and tell them, and maybe they can help you contact your parent. It really is that simple. You don't need to get your kid a cell phone. You don't need to establish a meeting place that they might not be able to find when they're lost and panicking. And you definitely don't need to give them a compass. All your kid has to do is 3 things. First, yell mom or dad real loud. 2, if that doesn't work, find an employee. And then 3rd, tell the employee they're lost. If they can't locate an employee, then tell them to find a mother with children, because that's probably the safest person to approach. I'm not saying that most men are predators, but most predators are men. That is a fact. I've read it in a fortune cookie. All right, so you've gone over the rules with your kid, and you've quizzed them, and they're able to tell you the correct responses so they understand the rules. But is that enough? How do you know they're gonna perform correctly in a real-world setting? You need to get out there and find out if they can actually do it. So you'd go over the rules and tell them, like, do this, do that, but how would you know if they actually knew what to do? If you wanted to shoot a basketball, and I just told you, oh, when you shoot a basketball, do this, this, and this.
I never practice.
You never practice, yeah, so it doesn't matter how many times we go over the rules or how well you can repeat them back to me. It's not going to change until you get on the court and practice.
Maybe do like a, you know, a little skit with them.
Like a role play?
Role play, yeah.
Your child, you're lost in the toy aisle.
Okay.
What do you do? I'm an attendant, walking around.
I'm lost, I don't know where my mom is. And then once you practice, you just like praise them, give them feedback, like, good job, you did it.
Reinforcing it.
Yes, this woman wins the prize for best comment. She pointed out the most important part of learning. Reinforcement. Now, in our study, we used praise, but for your kid, you might have to use something else. You might have to buy them a treat, a toy, take them to their favorite restaurant where they can eat unhealthy food, and run around and climb through plastic tunnels that have the unmistakable scent of urine, and then play games, spending $20 to get a plastic little spider ring that they will eventually lose in a ball pit. The point is, you need to reward your child for correctly demonstrating what you've been teaching them.
Okay, I'm gonna call her. So, hello, your child, Ryan is missing. There you go.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So you tested it out
I'll
in the
try.
store to make sure I knew it. I had the rules,
Yes.
we role played it, and you made sure I knew it, and then like you said, good job, and all that. Now we're good to go.
We're good to go.
All right.
Done?
High five right there.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Give your child the rules, get out there and practice, and reward your child for responding correctly. For more information, please visit us online at autismresearchgroup.org. I'm Ryan Bergstrom. Thanks for watching. Yes, ding. No. Yes, this woman wins the first. Yes, this woman. Yes, this woman wins the best. Yes, this woman wins the first place. Yes, this woman with. Why can't I say woman? Yes, this woman wins. What's the line? Yes!
We are back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and we have a very special guest who's a dear friend of mine. 14-year-old Sophie Rose has been singing and songwriting almost as long as you could talk. You were born in Los Angeles on Christmas Day, 1999, a special day. You have perfect pitch. You have taken your inspiration from such stars as Britney and Taylor and Miley, and you have written over 90 songs already. Sophie, you are a phenomenon.
Thank you guys so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, it's good to have you
Thrilled
here.
to have you here. And, you know, you're so passionate about what you do. How did you discover this passion?
Well, I've been singing my entire life. As Nancy said, I've been singing pretty much as long as I've been talking. And I started writing songs after I heard Taylor Swift and found out that she wrote her own songs, and that's just where it all started.
Yeah.
Really remarkable. And how do you feel when you're performing and when you're writing songs? What does it do for you as a person?
It really just makes me really happy, and I love doing it so much. And no one else I know even started doing music, or no one I know wrote songs when I started writing. So I don't know. I think it just like came from inside me, and I just really love doing it.
Well, I think it's remarkable that she is giving her... Well, first of all, you're cultivating your talent at such a young age. A lot of people your age haven't discovered what they want to do and what they're passionate about. But you've not only figured out what that is, but you're using that to give to other people. And Nancy can attest to how much you have been helping.
Act Today. As a matter of fact, didn't you do your first public appearance for Act Today?
Yes, my first time performing on a stage was at an Act Today event that Nancy invited me to play at.
Yeah,
I'm
at the
so
Sagebrush
grateful for that.
Cantina, and she got up there in front of everybody. How old were you at the time?
I was 10.
You were 10, and her composure was just amazing. So you knew you were seeing a rising star. And so now you are going to be receiving an honor on October 19th at the 9th annual Denim and Diamonds for Autism, which is our big gala at the Four Seasons in Westlake Village. And you are going to get the Golden Cowgirl Award, which is given to someone who has done so much for Act Today, someone in the community that has been a real activist. And I want to ask you, first of all, do you have... Of course, you know Wyatt, my son. Do you have other friends or family that are impacted by autism?
I have a cousin who has autism, and they're nonverbal. And I've seen the impact that it's had on their family, but she's just such a bundle of joy, and she brings so much happiness to the family, but I definitely see the challenges.
Okay.
Wow, really remarkable. We have a video.
We do, and this is a video that Sophie co-wrote. It's called Firefly, and we want everybody to know that this song can be downloaded, and 100% of the proceeds will go from each individual download to Act Today, and it can be purchased on iTunes, CD Baby, and other digital retailers. It's called Firefly, and we're going to go to it now. When we come back out, we'll talk more with Sophie Rose.
It's harder to find the fire inside me when everyone's trying to put it out. It's easy to stop myself from shining when I'm supposed to hide behind the clouds. But now I'm through with that. No more holding back. I'm a firefly, lighting up the sky. Sky, watch me shine, shine. Everywhere I go, you will see me like the starlight. I'm a firefly. Sometimes it's easy to ignore things and not take the time to understand. Sometimes it's harder when you have wings, and all you want is a helping hand. There's a spark in my heart that burns brighter in the dark. I'm a firefly, lighting up the sky. Watch me shine, shine. Everywhere I go, you will see me glow, glow like the starlight. I'm a firefly. You and I might be different, but I'm no different than you. And if you're anything like me, you'll be shining too. I'm a firefly, lighting up the sky. Watch me shine, shine. Everywhere I go, you see me glow, glow like the starlight. I'm a firefly.
I'm tearing up again.
I was going to say, I'm misty. We have tissues.
Sophie Rose, that is so beautiful.
Unbelievably beautiful. Such talented, what a beautiful voice, and the song itself is so beautiful, and the desire to give back using it is just amazing.
And she put that video together by herself with the help of our own Amy Zhang. All the pictures you saw were children with autism, and my son Wyatt was in there.
Love that.
Yeah.
I want to know what the meaning behind the song is, Firefly.
Well, I co-wrote the song with an amazing songwriter, Athena Marie, and we wrote this song for Act Today, and it's a song that represents the differences in everybody because everyone has differences. And sometimes what sets you apart from other people is what makes people bring you down, and that's not okay. So we wrote this song pretty much saying, let your light shine through for exactly who you are and don't let anyone put it out.
Love it. Great message.
I love that. So I want to encourage people once again to download the song Firefly by Sophie Rose. It's available on iTunes and CD Baby, and we're going to be putting it up on our Act Today YouTube site, so it will be up there as well. And how do you feel about being honored at Denim & Diamonds?
I'm so incredibly grateful that you guys would honor me with this incredible award. You do so many amazing things, and I'm just so proud to be part of this.
Well, it's because of people like you that we're able to do amazing things.
Thank you.
Well, I want to know, here you are, you're 14, and you're already doing amazing things. What are your aspirations? What do you want to do?
Well, right now I'm writing songs to pitch to other artists to sing, but my goal for my future is to be my own artist and have people know me as an artist.
Now, there's been somebody that's been extremely influential in your development as an artist. Can you talk about that person?
Yes, my mom is my hero. She has supported me throughout my entire journey, and I couldn't do it without her.
Your mom, Melanie Abrams, who is a dear friend of mine and is on the committee for Denim & Diamonds and is just such an incredible woman, and I know she is so proud of you, like we all are, Sophie. You are just phenomenal. Now, how can our listeners find out more about you? And
you can go to my website, sophierosemusic.net, and on my website you have all the links to my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Okay.
Well, now I'm really weeping. Because in this world of all the things that are going on, and even on the way in this morning, I was listening to NPR talking about how stressful it is to have teenagers. And here you are, you're a 14-year-old who is passionate and talented and giving back. And when asked who inspires you, you say your mother is your hero. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where we all need to get to. Can I just say? I mean, how rare is that to hear from a 14-year-old girl talking about her mother? I think you're remarkable, and I think your mother's remarkable. That's a success story right there without everything else, but the rest of it just makes it that much better.
Well, we can't wait to hear you on October 19th up there on that stage performing Firefly in front of everyone and getting your honor, and it is so well deserved. And thank you on behalf of all the families that you are helping and the awareness you're bringing to autism. And we are so grateful.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful having you.
We got to watch this girl's career.
Support this young woman and support what she's advocating for ACT Today. They're all good things. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that Miracle Project. And you guys have written in a question for Nancy and I that we're also going to tackle as well. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but you know, we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received a grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, you know, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Mark it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear Act Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Here we are. Welcome back. We do have a lot of time, and we have many things to talk about. So I want to start with, somebody wrote in a question and said, "Hi, Shannon and Nancy. I was wondering, I hear you say that your kids are recovering. I know all kids are different with ASD, but I would like to get a glimpse of some things I can expect for my 4.5-year-old son's future. Can you tell me what things your kids struggle with and what you feel are not typical?" I want to go back to the first thing, talking about recovery,
Yes.
because when my son was, we've had a progression of what we've said. How do you language when your child gets a diagnosis? And I hated it when in the beginning, when I said he's autistic, it never sat well with me.
Okay.
And so then we started saying has autism.
Has autism.
And that sat well with me.
That's what I
liked
said.
that.
Mhm.
And that, personal preference.
Right.
That was what we liked. But then we got to a point where that no longer, I felt, didn't fit because he'd made so much progress. And so I said I wanted to be positively assumptive. And I said to my husband, I want to start saying he's actively recovering from autism. And so for a lot of years, that's what we said. And recently, there have been viewers who've said to me, it offends me when you say that. It offends me when you use the word recover.
Okay.
And went through a lot of soul searching about it.
Okay, why? Did they say why it offended
Yes.
them? Okay, why?
And I've talked to many people about this, that they feel like that when they're on the spectrum and they're adults on the spectrum, when we talk about recovery from autism, they're thinking recovery from who they are.
Okay.
It's how they identify themselves as being people who, like Temple Grandin calls herself, an autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk about recovery, they take that as you're trying to recover from what I am. You're trying to change who I am.
Okay.
I've explained to them that's not what I mean by those words, but it's just like when people say they don't want the football team to be called the Redskins, and people say that's not what we mean by it, and the group says it still offends me.
Right.
You know, I had this discussion with my son yesterday because he referred to me as being fat, which, I am, but I said to him, that hurts my feelings. And he said, I didn't mean for it to hurt your feelings. And I said, but it still does. So I have, I know how I feel in my heart about that word, but I'm trying to use that less. But I do want people to understand that my son is not in a stagnant place on the autism spectrum. Every day he moves further and further into a place where he is not disabled by those aspects of autism that he has, but he can use some of the things that put him on the spectrum to empower him, but he's losing the disabling aspects of autism.
Okay.
And that's what I want to focus on.
And before I move on to Wyatt, let's define what recovered means.
Very good point. And I do think that people need to understand that autism spectrum disorder is actually a diagnosis of a disorder. It says that you are disabled and not able to function within the norms of society, and it lists a bunch of different symptoms, behaviors
that
are in the DSM-5. And this has changed recently, but it's still a disorder. And so we're not saying that people get brainwashed, we're not saying that people change who they are, but when individuals work, in particular with ABA and sometimes with biomedical help as well, to make sure that they're healthy, and they engage in behaviors that are useful to them, a day comes when they no longer qualify for the designation of having a disorder.
Because they test, because the series of diagnostic testing does not put them on the autism spectrum anymore.
And hopefully the testing is done by people that are reputable enough to understand that. I know many people who had a diagnosis of autism at one point in their life, the disorder, and that they are leading full and rich lives that you and I, maybe they're eccentric to somebody else, but their life is full. They're able to be a contributing member of society. They love and are loved. They have friends. They have relationships. They have children. I don't think any of us could look at them and say that they are disabled.
Right.
And they don't look at themselves as disabled. And my understanding and my definition of recovery is when you are no longer disabled. You don't qualify for the disorder.
So what if, and you know, we're having this discussion really for the first time, if someone goes from what was called moderately autistic to Asperger's,
right?
Would you call that recovered?
Well, you know, under the strict definition, my son, we do not consider recovered,
right.
The term that I'm not using anymore, because he still qualifies under some things. But we can't think of him as where he was before because he's made so much progress. I feel like if my son were to go in now, that he might, and have somebody look at him now, he would probably get the old Asperger, right?
Right.
So I don't call that recovered. I've been saying he's actively recovering.
Okay.
But I don't have the right words. In fact, I just have been writing a blog about this, about what words do we use so we don't hurt somebody, but so that we can talk intelligently about the fact that you can have progress on the spectrum. You can grow and you can still stay who you are. You're not brainwashed, and you are uniquely yourself, and love the things that you love. You're still you, but you're not being held back by some of the things that cage our kids,
right?
And prevent them from being able to do things that they truly want to be able to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I say that I have a son who has autism. I say he's on the autism spectrum oftentimes, one of those two things. I do say he has made enormous gains. I don't say he's recovering. I say he's made enormous gains by having access to the proper care and treatment, which he got at a very late date. I have made the statement several times that I do believe that had my son had access to intensive ABA at the age of 2 rather than at the age of 5, he most likely would have recovered. Now, that's just my gut feeling, considering the gains he's made at such a late date, starting, you know, intensive ABA at 5, that I feel like when those neuro pathways were more open, when the brain was more flexible, considering the rate of gains he's made now, I think, you know, who knows, might want to, you know, but that's shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Right.
Can't go there. I do also see that along with the gains that Wyatt makes, there are other challenges that come up all the time. And I don't want to soft pedal those because with puberty, he's 12 now, there are other things that sometimes it's hard to, what's the puberty? What's the typical 12-year-old oppositional behavior, wanting to assert independence? What is the autism? But also there are some behaviors that have even started at a later age that I would consider autistic behaviors that he didn't have when he was 5. Certain self-stimulatory behaviors that have gotten more intense. He's having more problems with anxiety as he's gotten older, which I think so many of our kids have issues with anxiety and OCD. So I say he's making gains. He is firmly on the autism spectrum, and I've heard my friend Lisa Ackerman from TACA say about her son, he's still firmly on the autism spectrum, but he's doing great.
Yeah.
So I like to say that, and I also, I know earlier in this whole autism experience of being an autism parent, when I would hear about recovery, I often felt an enormous sense of guilt that I did not get my child recovered. And I felt like, didn't I do enough? Didn't I try enough interventions? Didn't I? And I don't think guilt serves anybody well.
No.
So if your child is not one of those early responders or has not made progress, I don't want anybody to come away with a sense of guilt, because I know so many parents are doing everything within their means to help their children, and they don't see these dramatic gains, and that can result in a sense of guilt, and I don't want parents to feel that.
We don't need any more guilt than we already are cycling through on ourselves. But to get back to your answer, and I think, you know, both of us have sort of addressed this in some ways, that you know what the phrase is, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. But it's impossible as a parent not not to compare. It just is. I think
I do
we're
it all
all
the time.
guilty of it, and we all say to ourselves, "That's not useful. I'm not going to do that," but we do it anyway. And I know when I had a 4.5-year-old, I was always asking other parents, "What can I expect? What can I? What are the possibilities?"
Right.
And so I just want you to know that when my son was 4.5, it was right around when he was 4.5 when we had a big shift. That we got some of his yeast under control, and we saw he went like that. And because before that, they were telling us he was going to be ready to go to kindergarten, and I wasn't seeing it. I just wasn't seeing it. But right around 4.5, the ABA and our yeast medications together, the yeast medication kicked in, and he had a huge spurt, was able to go to typical kindergarten, be completely caught up, where 2 months before it wasn't happening. I'm just being real here. And so academically, he has been caught up since then. He has been completely included, had different amounts of support in the classroom, but could keep up academically. He just had struggles with attention and focus and social interaction. He still deals with some of that now, but I can throw him into a mix with into a party that has other kids his age, and he can pretty much handle it.
Yeah.
I might have some behaviors afterwards, but he can handle himself now, and I'm incredibly lucky and grateful. There are kids who are doing better than him. Just to be, he's like somewhere in the high middle there. There are kids who can handle many more things than he can, but my goodness, am I grateful that he's doing so well, and do I count my blessings every day? Certainly not as much as I should be, but yes, I count my blessings every day. So, and he will go to college, and God willing, he will have a loving relationship with someone and have kids of his own.
And you expect him to live independently and have a job and all those things?
Well, now let's not go crazy.
Okay, all right. All right, let's not go
yes,
crazy.
he expects that, and everyone around him expects that. I have not made my peace with that.
Okay.
But everyone else does.
All right.
It's me that's like, no, he and I will travel and do whatever, but no. His intention is he will move away.
Well, Wyatt, because I believe because he got such late intervention with ABA, he was just under 5, which is why I do the work I do with Act Today, because I thought if this can happen to me, and children get it much later than Wyatt. I mean, I believe me, I count my blessings every day that he has made the gains he has. But I do believe, well, first of all, he was underdiagnosed with PDD-NOS when he was moderately to severely autistic. And his gains have been great in the behavioral area. He, at the age of 4.5, was probably having, I would say, anywhere between 5 and 10 massive tantrums a day with self-injurious behaviors, aggressive behaviors. He started to make great gains when we put him on the gluten-free, dairy-free diet when he was 3.5, before we, actually about almost 4. And within putting him on that GFCF diet, within a couple of weeks, he was going from saying one word to saying 2-3 sentences, 2-3-word sentences. So that was a big change for us. With the ABA, it has been painstakingly slow and long, but he no longer has violent tantrums at all. He has learned how to self-regulate, self-modulate. He still has a lot of self-stimulatory behaviors, verbal stereotypy, physical stereotypy, that prevent him from focusing and prevent him from socializing. So if I throw him into a group of typical kids, he does not necessarily go in with them. He might isolate by himself, and if it's around water, he's going to go splash water. However, he has made a lot of gains in social skills, and he is functioning. He's going into 7th grade, and he's at a 3rd grade level. And I do believe the reason for that is because the autism interfered with him being able to access a curriculum. So what I'm hoping is, rather than the gap continuing to widen, the gap will close. However, I have talked to many moms, particularly with Wyatt doing the Miracle Project summer theater camp with so many other kids on the spectrum, and most of them are older than him. And a lot of those moms have told me that for some of their kids, the gap widened. They were making gains. They were at 2nd or 3rd, and then as the other kids started to grasp everything and go up, the academic gap widened, although some of the social things came up to speed. So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. I think, but I do believe firmly that all our children can make gains.
It's true.
With the right treatment and care.
True. Science has shown us that's absolutely a true statement.
And I don't, and I know ABA is the main thing, but that's not the only thing.
Absolutely.
Programs that emphasize social skills. For some children, getting on a horse and doing equine assisted therapy can unlock a voice.
Yeah.
For some children, going into a theater program can give them something, they can see a talent they never had before, right?
Yeah, I just want to say though that that's not antithetical to an ABA program, because the ABA program is about finding the thing that's reinforcing, and for some kids that means swimming with a dolphin.
Exactly.
So for some kids that means riding on a horse.
Right.
For some kids that means getting up and singing in front of other people in a theater program.
Yes.
But you have to, and Temple talks about this too, you have to key into what's the paycheck for the kid? What is their currency?
Right.
And then feed that, because amazing things happen, which leads us right into talking, because we've only got a few minutes now, the Miracle Project.
Yes.
Because we came to see it on Friday, and we've had Coach E on the show, and I've talked to her, and I think she's an amazing person, but my opinion of her and what she's doing went through the roof. Seeing Wyatt and so many other kids in that show, it was so moving, Nancy.
Well, I have to say that, you know, she really, the show turned my whole perspective around last week after I saw the first show. And not just because of Wyatt and his participation, but watching these kids up there, some of them nonverbal, some of them that you would consider, by looking at them, severely autistic. The brilliance out of these kids. One boy in particular who wrote a song that they...
Amazing.
And another boy who gets on the piano and is a virtuoso. A young woman named Spencer. And we're going to have some of these kids here with Coach E, and we're going to look at some of the videos. We talked yesterday about actually screening some of the show, Joining the Spectrum, which is a Miracle Project in conjunction with Cal State Northridge. It was done over the summer. I just want to clarify what it was.
Right.
It's ending on Thursday. And what's been amazing to me is that I look at these kids on stage, and then I go and talk to the parents, and I'll say, oh, but so-and-so is so high-functioning, right? And they'll go, no, he's at second grade level at age 18. And
yet
I
in
am
the
blown
show,
away. And
we
in
see
the
the talent.
show, he is brilliant, a brilliant actor, sings on key. So... you said Elaine said something.
When
that
she
really
was here the
affected
last
you.
time to talk about this, she said, I don't like to say high functioning and low functioning, because she was talking about her son, and she said, you know, you could put my son in one circumstance where they're doing trigonometry, and with typical kids his age, and you would look at him and you would go, oh, this young man is low functioning because he can't do this and he can't communicate with them what he can't do. And she said, but you could take that same group of kids and my son and take them on a mountain hike and say, we're going to get this gear together and get it organized to take on this mountain hike, and the rest of the kids would be like, and you would consider them low functioning, but her son would be the high functioning
Neil,
one.
and I met him yesterday.
That it's all about the context of what somebody's abilities are, and none of us are great at everything. We can't be.
Of course.
And that if we widen that to look at our kids and say, where do they excel, and then put them in that environment and encourage them in that environment, that the things that happen, we see that no one is low functioning.
That's right. I mean, personally, I stopped being able to do math at around second grade.
Oh, help me.
And really, truly, I used to read
I can't do my
novels in
son's
math
math
class.
right now.
I used to have straight A's and D's in math. So I'd read novels in math class all through high school.
Sweetheart, I am on Google every other day doing homework, trying to figure out on Google and looking on YouTube for a mathematician to explain to me how to help my son with his homework. And then he explains it to me.
I know.
And that was 5th grade. Heaven help me as we move into high school.
I know. Did we
Anyway,
show
we
you
want
those
we want to see the pictures of when.
Oh, there's Coach E with my dearest Amy Zhang on Coach E's right, and Chrissia Avalos, who is our grants administrator. She gives all the grants, and she speaks Spanish to the Spanish-speaking families.
And the set is in the background, which was beautiful.
Yes, and there is Wyatt, the
With
little
Jem.
thespian with Jem, Shannon's son, who came to see him, and his proud mommy.
Jem
and then
loved
there's
the show.
Uncle Johnny, Wyatt's superhero, my brother John Allspaw with his nephew. So proud of him.
Well, and I just want to say that it was life-changing to be in the audience. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I mean it. It was life-changing to be in the audience for everyone that was there. I'm sure it was life-changing for everybody who participated. And I know that Coach E is going around the country and doing more of these programs. If there's an opportunity for your child to participate and your child has any interest in anything having to do with performing arts, get them in that program.
And we're funding grants through Act Today. One of our biggest pushes at Denim and Diamonds for Autism in October is to raise money for this program and others like it. So please know that we sent about 10 kids that couldn't have been able to do this summer through Act Today through a $10,000 grant. So let's keep that good work coming. Please donate to Act Today. We need to.
Absolutely amazing, and we look forward to having Coach E to talk about the whole program. But really, it's aptly named. She calls it the Miracle Project.
Yeah,
That's
it
exactly
is.
what it should be called.
It is a miracle.
And she's a bit of a miracle, and I know she would say her whole team too. And Wyatt was so precious in the show. He was so precious in the show. And I'll tell you, they came out and did speeches beforehand, and at one point they were saying, okay, it's going to be 75-minute long with no intermission. And I had to sit up with you because it was sold out.
Right.
And so my husband and my son were sitting in the front row, and I thought, oh my goodness, 75 minutes, he's 11 and on the spectrum. Is he going to sit through the whole thing? What is she thinking having no intermission? He was fine.
Yeah.
He was glued to the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think
and Wyatt came running
volumes.
up, like as my husband said, like he just won Wimbledon, and came running up into the stands and threw his arms around his mom.
You gotta love that.
Moment.
You gotta love that. So we're out of time. Hey, tomorrow we have a great guest who's going to be with us, Jim Kober, from an amazing organization talking about the autism site and everything else, the greater good. I got to talk to you about this. And then we're going to have Dr. Jonathan Tarbuck. So that's tomorrow. Make sure that you're tuning in for that. Lots more coming up about next week. Some really impressive guests for you. But until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Go sneeze now.